To bring you more on that breaking news now, U.S. President Donald Trump says a deal with Iran is scheduled to be signed tomorrow, and the Strait of Hormuz will be opened immediately afterwards. Let's bring in our security and defense analyst, Professor Michael Clarke. Michael, that is the exact phrasing that the president's used. The deal is scheduled to get signed tomorrow. He certainly seems very confident. Are you as confident that this will all go as smoothly as the president seems to imply it will?
No. First, it's not a deal. It's an exchange of memoranda, two MOUs that are exchanged, which is a way of saying we'll carry on talking for 60 days in a ceasefire. So it's better than nothing, but it's not a peace deal. It's a series of modalities to arrive at a peace deal. And secondly, it would be unusual to me if the Iranians signed it tomorrow, because why would they play to President Trump's agenda? They want to humiliate him, and it would suit them to embarrass him and say, well, maybe we'll sign it next week when we're really happy with it. Remember that when the hostage crisis was on under Jimmy Carter's presidency in 1979, eventually they negotiated the release of the hostages, but they were not released until the hour after Jimmy Carter had handed over power to Ronald Reagan. They humiliated him by hanging on until the inauguration ceremony was an hour in, and Ronald Reagan was then the president, and then the hostages were released. They've got a very acute sense of how to humiliate the United States, and they believe that humiliation is appropriate because they think that they are in the driving seat as far as these negotiations go. So we don't know. Everything's unpredictable with Donald Trump and with this war. But personally, I'd be a bit surprised if they sign tomorrow. I think they'll hang on in order to humiliate him.
OK, so I get the point about them possibly not signing tomorrow, which is the time frame that Donald Trump has outlined. But what about the memorandum of understanding in general? Do you think that some kind of breakthrough will happen, if not tomorrow, in the coming days? I mean, that's what the Pakistani prime minister seems to think.
Yes. I mean, they seem to have arrived at the point where they say we will discuss the things we need to discuss, which is the Strait of Hormuz, what happens to the enriched uranium, the whole process of nuclear issues, and then unfreezing assets, the Iranian assets that are frozen, releasing some sanctions, and then most important of all, a ceasefire in Lebanon. So there's at least 6 things which they have to discuss. And the key issue will be the sequencing. I mean, what do the Iranians have to do to get sanctions relief? What do they have to do to get the assets unfrozen? What's the sequencing for opening the Strait of Hormuz, given that if there's any delay in these processes, they could close the Strait of Hormuz again. So I suspect it will be a very odd 60 days. It won't go smoothly. These things never do. And that says nothing about ballistic missiles, which is what this was always supposed to be about. Nothing about the proxies, all the other areas, the other groups in the Middle East that the Iranians fund and direct or inspire. Nothing about regime change, of course, which is not going to happen. So of the 6 issues that it will deal with, there's an awful long way to go. And ultimately, I mean, the United States is trying to salvage something here out of a losing position. I mean, if I'll stick my neck out now and I say, I think militarily, the United States lost this war on the 8th of April when they had the ceasefire, because Donald Trump, that was the night, if you remember, when he said, tonight a civilization will come to an end. And I think both the White House and Tehran were kind of frightened by the position that they got themselves into. They frightened themselves by where they were that night. And in a way, that marked the moment when the Americans decided, look, there's nothing else we can do with military power. Our military power is not going to coerce the Iranians into doing what we want them to do, even on the nuclear issue, let alone all the other things. And I think that marked the loss of this war, because after that, the Americans were never going to get out of it what they wanted to politically. And since the 8th of April, all the noise and the discussions and all the back and forth Trump statements, we're going to have peace. No, we're not going to have peace. We're going to go back to war. Every Friday, it's a peaceful statement. Every Monday, it's a warlike statement because he's trying to influence the markets. All of that is the noise around the Americans trying to bolster what is effectively a weak political position. Because although the country of Iran desperately needs peace, the Iranians, all 90 million of them, they desperately need peace. But the people in power don't. The IRGC, who are now in power, the hardliners, they're all very well off personally. They've all got their bolt holes to go to when things collapse, if they collapse at some time in the future, as I suspect that they will. And so they don't need peace as much as the population of Iran needs peace. And it's a deeply, deeply corrupt organization. It's an organization which cares nothing for Iranian people, despite what they say. So they're under no real pressure to give in. Donald Trump is under much more pressure to get a deal of some sort, and he'll have to try to sell it to the American public as being somehow better than the Obama deal of 2015, which he withdrew from.
Yeah, it's interesting how he started that statement on Truth Social, mentioning the JCPOA, Obama's deal. So, look, Michael, obviously you paint a picture that doesn't leave a lot of hope when it comes to a long-lasting peace between Iran and the United States. But it's really the Strait of Hormuz that has made this war have an impact on economies right around the world. So do you foresee not a long-lasting peace between the two warring parties, but some kind of opening of the Strait of Hormuz soon?
Yes, Barbara. I mean, I don't see a return to military activity particularly, but I see a grumbling diplomatic argument between Iran and the United States that will go on and will go on beyond the 60 days, and there may be occasional military operations on both sides. So I think we're not going to see a neat end to this. It will just drift on for a long time. The Strait of Hormuz, I'm sure, will open again, but it will never go back to the way it was, ever. Whatever they say about the Strait of Hormuz, it will not go back to the way it was, because the Iranians now know, and we now know, how easy it is for them to close it. It wasn't as easy for them to do this in the tanker war during the 1980s, but the modern technologies of cheap ballistic missiles, cheap drones, robotic boats, even midget robotic submarines, all of those things didn't exist in the 1980s, but they exist now. And operating from Qesem Island, from Bandar Abbas, the Iranians can close the strait at a moment's notice whenever they want to. And that's the new reality that won't change.
Our security and defense analyst, Professor Michael Clarke. Michael, always good to talk to you. Thank you.